Hello and welcome to my presentation for 401 research project. The first thing I want to do is I'd like to talk about the my research process that that was used during this. The first thing is that I learned a lot of new things from the class that helped out a lot. Um, so I just want to kind of go over the process that we learned first, and then I'll discuss about the different things I learned through my research paper. The first thing we did was the brainstorming process, where you basically have to, come up with your ideas and build everything, work up a thesis, and learn that doing this, you have to think about it a lot because you want to make sure you build a good foundation to start off with and have a solid project to work off of. The next thing was finding sources, which finding the sources wasn't too bad because I was doing a historical project. So there's a lot of academic historical stuff out there to choose from. Uh, when doing the sources, one of the things we had to do was the annotated bibliography. And that helped a lot with me to identify the correct sources as you looked at a lot of some books or some sources weren't exactly a perfect fit. So doing an annotated bibliography helped me narrow down those sources to the ones that really helped out with my project. Um, the categorization chart I kind of put in under find your sources too, because it helps even more than finding um, your annotated bibliography. It actually gives you a breakdown of what each source category it falls into. So with mine, I had like 4 different categories. So all of my sources, some of them would fit in some category, some would fit in more than one. So it kind of helped with that, having that idea with my sources. I wasn't jumping around trying to find what fit where, and being able to, it helped me with my note taking process and all that for the paper. The best tool that I learned was using the outline, and it helped me more than anything else did in learning this research steps. The outline really give me a solid path to follow with the paper. Once I had my outline in place and I could change it, the thing with the outline, you don't have to stick to it. Like, you could change it as you go. So that was the big thing for me, to be able to modify it and do what I need to do with it to make it work. Um, the next part would be working up the draft. Um, that was pretty good. The draft was my first draft was rough. It was very rough. And the peer review process that we started doing in the class throughout the annotated bibliography, stuff like that, that really helped as well, especially with the rough draft and stuff like that, because the other students were catching things that I didn't think wrong, but also it made me pay more attention when I was, giving their peer review. It made me pay more attention to what they were writing to help them out. So the peer review process was a huge plus as far as doing this. And of course, the final thing of the paper was our final revisions. And of course, that's already been turned in. Now I'll talk about my paper a little bit. The paper was titled Winds of War. It focused on the causes that drew the U.S. into conflicts throughout the 20th century and their relation to each other. These causes are pretty much all the causes to war as time goes along. The U.S. actually, there's a few that the U.S. came across that was kind of new to the scene of war and the politics of it. I basically had 4 subsections of these causes. It was political, economic, foreign policy procedures, and public opinion. On the political side, I was very surprised at how quickly I found in my research how quickly support changed for certain wars. Now, for World War II, they were behind it 100% the whole time because we were attacked, basically. But like during the Korean War, as the war drew on, uh, political support dropped out because people were unhappy with the war, and the politicians were saw that it was not winnable. So political support dropped, and the war pretty much ended up a stalemate. On the economic side of the causations, uh, the creation of the military-industrial complex was my biggest find in my readings, uh, and basically it showed how the Cold War actually built a whole economic sector that our country lives off of. Also, I touched on our reliance on Middle East oil and how that affects the our problems today with conflicts in the Middle East. Foreign policy, uh, research parts about how it was used to manipulate our involvement in conflicts. That foreign policy was bent to whatever a person needed to move along their idea of what the U.S. needed to do. As far as public opinion, uh, it changed drastically over time from when World War I and World War II took place to, say, the Vietnam War. The public kind of went along with everything, but then later on, as time changed, as the 50s and 60s arrived, we see a trend where public opinion actually matters now. And the politicians understood this as well because you started having a lot of issues with uh, the public opinion actually affecting whether or not a politician got reelected or not. The biggest takeaways, though, were that we need to get educated on our problems with our conflicts, learning from the past, the mistakes of the past. That's the big thing. Diplomacy and sanctions should be the number one attempt to correct something before you decide that military action is the best way to go. Selecting the correct leaders. That's where the public opinion comes in. Your vote does matter. And do the right thing with the leaders that are in there. Make sure you're electing the right officials to the offices. We can build from the mistakes from the past, and that's going to make a better future for everybody. But I quite enjoyed the research project and enjoyed the class, and thank y'all.